about it. Lawns are everywhere, in front of our houses, our churches, our hospitals. Even the stretches along highways have well-manicured lawns, but this is certainly not a place where people sit or cows graze. What's the purpose of all this grass? There are approximately 46.5 million acres of grass under cultivation in the United States currently. More grass is being cultivated than wheat, corn, and tobacco. In fact, more grass is under cultivation in the U.S. than any other crop. Save the small fraction of grass which is eaten by livestock, this is a seemingly useless crop. So why are Americans so gung-ho for grass? This obsession is certainly not cheap. Americans spend between $25 and $30 billion on lawn care each year.
People do spend a lot of time and money on their yards and gardens, and if you can save that time and save that money and put it towards something more valuable, it makes your garden that much better.
$750 million per year is spent on grass seed alone to perpetuate this cycle of mowable new growth.
The number one department. We sell more lawn and garden than anything else. People love their yards. They like to have they like to have a nice green grass. Lawn and garden is the most active thing that people do today.
Money isn't the only thing that's being wasted. 30% of municipal water in the eastern U.S. ends up on lawns, with an even more extreme 60% in the drier climate of the West. 27,144 gallons of water are required to cover an acre of lawn with 1 inch of water, which is the recommended watering amount for 1 week's time. How can something which is seemingly nonsensical and wasteful be such an important part to the American fabric of society? I mean, it's just grass, right? Wrong. In American society, grass is no longer just a plant, and lawns are no longer the strip of land in front of your house. First, we must examine what brought us to where we are. The transition from hunter-gatherer to cultivating farmers was a transition in human evolution, which began the practice of settling and began man's relationship of control with plants.
It sort of makes people that have these intensely manicured lawns and things of that sort, it sort of takes away, sort of makes them look a little bit silly because, their shrubs tend to look like gumdrops and lollipops.
The practice of farming continued and grew until man reached a level of surplus and plenty. To the average person, plants could now serve purposes not immediately related to their survival. This can be examined particularly in the mid-19th century. This is where the concept of the modern-day lawn takes root.
It's a combination of appearance. It's a combination. They want to be able to go in their yard and not have dirt everywhere.
Right.
They want to have nice green carpet. That's the American dream,
In 1870, Frank Scott wrote in his book, The Art of Suburban Home Grounds of Small Extent, about the importance of lawn to society, and speaks of weeds with a passion and disdain. Of lawns, he says no lawn can be brought to perfection if cut less often than once a week.
Typically, you should mow once a week. Okay, you should cut not more than 1/3 of the grass plant down at a time.
Okay.
So if your grass is 3 inches tall, you should only cut 1 inch off. So you want to keep it at a regular height. So that's why you don't want to. You want it to grow really tall and then cut it right down to the root system. That's the worst thing you can do. You just want to. It's like getting a haircut. You want it to be cut nice and with a sharp blade. Because if you don't, you can see it. If you use a dull blade when you cut your grass, all the tips of the grass are going to be brown because you're ripping it instead of cutting it properly.
Scott explains that weeds should be dealt with like cancers and removed with a long, sharp knife and busy fingers. Scott also suggests that not maintaining a perfect lawn is not only a bad reflection on an individual, but can break down society. It is an individual's responsibility and duty to maintain their lawn, even as far back as in the late 1800s.
Sort of like the keeping up with the Joneses sort of idea. And usually people that have intense yards are are trying to keep up with their next door neighbors and show that, you know, they're sort of at that next level.
This is a sharp change from the American immigrants who brought grass seed for the purposes of feeding livestock. Grass had evolved from a useful crop to a decoration. Scott goes so far as to compare the patches of a quilt, which represent different members of a family, to our lawns, which are the patches of grass which make up different members of America. Following World War II, lawns continued to grow in popularity, and the concept of the perfect lawn increased with suburban sprawl. Electric lawn mowers were invented, which increased the popularity to men. Children mowed lawns as a means of making extra money, learning responsibility, and as a passage into adulthood. A well-kept lawn became a representation of the people who cultivated it. A nice lawn symbolized power and respect. A sloppy lawn can mean laziness and low class. It wasn't long before business became more involved with lawn care. Competition to own the best mower added a competitive edge to lawn care for companies and consumers alike. Turf industries began shaping the perceptions of consumers to better fit their products. And so began the war on clovers. Clovers have not always been demonized as a weed. In Warren Schultz's book, Man's Turf, The Perfect Lawn, he explains that following World War II, scientists realized that by altering nerve gas they had used at wartime, they could create a mixture that kills weeds but not grass. The first herbicides were born. The only catch was that herbicides killed clovers as well as leaving large, unsightly bare patches.
Be seeded, and there's still a lot of clover, there's a lot of weeds and stuff.
Clovers before this time were seen as a nice addition to lawns, which created a fuller texture. Instead of altering herbicides to no longer kill clovers, clovers were demonized through media outlets, ultimately exiling them from the conception of lawn bliss. Lawns reached another extreme in 1965 with the invention of AstroTurf. AstroTurf was invented creating maintenance-free perfect grass. It gained popularity when it was first used in the Houston Astrodome. AstroTurf allowed for the look of perfect grass, even when inside an enclosure like a stadium. Lawns have become an icon for kitsch as well. Yard gnomes, pink flamingos, what won't people put out in their gardens these days? So, are people really that passionate about lawns still today?
You're either somebody who wants to take care of your lawn intensively, which is like, you know, your lawn, it's a pretty crazy thing. It's like a drug habit for your lawn. Or you're somebody that doesn't want to do that and is looking for more of a ecological way of taking care of it.
As simple as it may seem, lawns have a very important role in society now, just as they did in the past, although some of the associations may have changed.
Gotten to a point where people maintain these extensive lawns and they're maintained for no purpose at all. You don't see people out using their lawns for any reason, and it's really too bad because they could really be using their lawn area and their gardens as an extension of their house.
The Smell and Taste Treatment and Research Foundation found that the smell of cut grass is one of the most stimulating smells. The smell of cut grass to people born before 1960 is reminiscent of happiness, whereas people born after 1960 associate the smell with unwanted, hard labor. Today, lawns are a responsibility. People feel that they need to maintain a perfect lawn, they just aren't sure why. We even have laws regulating yard growth. If you get behind on your mowing, dirty looks from your neighbors are no longer the repercussions. You could be slapped with a fine. So, how important is your lawn? Is it worth it to spend more time working on your lawn than relaxing on it? One thing is for certain. The rise of the lawn symbolizes the rise of American culture. Having a controlled lawn is all about image. A prosperous lawn can represent many things, from wealth and status to power. Just as a lawn represents the person who owns it, the concept of having a lawn shows us what Americans value.